today I want to talk about building a solo over common changes. This is obviously a huge part of playing jazz, is playing improvised solos over chord changes. And today I kind of want to bring a couple different elements all into one. I had a couple suggestions to kind of do this in videos, and I want to give it a try. So today I want to talk about a simple jazz chord progression that I didn't make it up, but I'm using it today as an example. And I'm going to kind of involve comping, voicings, and using scales and arpeggios to create a simple but melodic and rhythmic solo. So the first thing I want to go over is the chord changes, okay? And this will all be in a PDF that you can contact me for. And eventually I totally want to get like all kinds of graphics and stuff, but I'm not quite there yet, so bear with me. So the chord changes are in C major, alright? So the progression goes like this. I'll play it once and explain it. Okay, so in C major, we have C major 7 for 2 beats, D minor 7 for 2 beats, E minor 7 for 2 beats, A7, A dominant 7 for 2 beats, D minor 7, G7, and C. So again, C, D minor 7, E minor 7, A7, D minor 7, G7, C major 7. Okay? This is a really common and typical progression. You could find something like this in songs like, even like Oh Christmas Tree or Doxy. You could kind of do this over. But it's a really common progression. It takes you through various parts of the key and 2 5s, right? So if we're doing Roman numerals, we have 1, 2, 3, 6, 2, 5, 1. And you may be wondering why the 6th chord, A, is a dominant 7 chord. Because in the key, it would be minor, right? Because there's no C sharp in C major scale, right? But we make it dominant so we can tonicize the D minor. That basically means we're doing 5, 1 instead of a minor to 2. It kind of accentuates and really voice leads a lot better to the 2 chord, okay? So again, alright, and the basic voicings I'm using that I put in the PDF are just set to, okay, drop voicings. So my first voicing is C, G, B, E. I'm just moving that up to D minor, E minor, so kind of just staying in those 4 strings. I use these pretty much exact voicings in my string set videos that I previously uploaded, and I'll talk more about voicings obviously in more videos. This one isn't as focused on voicings, but those are just to get you acquainted to the progression really quickly. And one thing that I had in the PDF was a quick comping pattern that would be like in the swing style. So what I had was a 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so just a quick little pattern. It's in the PDF, so you can kind of check that out and play that along. And another thing that I always want to talk about with progressions, and especially when we're trying to find material to play solos with, we want to be aware of the 3rds and 7ths of every chord change that we're playing, right? Because the 3rds and 7ths are really the ones that define a chord quality. The root and the 5th, yes, they're not as essential actually, surprisingly. The 3rds and the 7ths are really what gives the chord its color and its tone and its meaning, really. So the 3rds and 7ths are also in the PDF, and so the 3rd and 7th for C major 7 would be E and B, right? So we have that's the whole chord progression just with 2 notes, the 3rds and 7ths for each one. You can see how they kind of voice lead into each other. So E to B goes to F and C, goes to G and D, and the G stays, goes to C sharp, back to D minor, F and C, and then F stays and the C goes down to B, and then E and B. Okay, so one more time. So you can almost hear those changes even without the other notes filling in, right? And if you can't, I would recommend playing the thirds and sevenths and then just with the bass notes, so like this. And then further, try and sing the bass notes along with it, okay? Sorry. Right, so then kind of bringing that voice element really kind of solidifies the harmony in your ear, because we want to be able to hear the harmony in our heads first before anything, before even trying to play a melodic solo over it, alright? Okay, so I know I've been kind of talking a lot and not playing a lot, and if any of these concepts are kind of over your head at the moment, that's totally cool, because this video does kind of dive into some things where previous knowledge is needed, but don't worry, I'm going to have plenty more videos that are going to discuss each of these little topics, you know, more in depth. So keep on the lookout for those. So after we got the changes down, we've talked about the thirds and sevenths. Now, how are we going to play a solo over this? What kind of notes we're going to use, right? So I said the whole progression is in C major, right? And that's pretty much true except for one little part. So for almost the entirety of the changes, the progression, we can use just a C major scale. Now the one little part where it does not work, I bet you can take a guess, is the A7. Because the major third of A is C sharp. And C sharp obviously is not in the C major scale. So how are we going to kind of approach that one chord and one change? Well, pretty simply. Like I said, since A7 is the 5 chord to D minor, right? Then we can kind of assume that for that one measure, the 2 chords, we can almost put ourselves in the key of D minor. And some of you more advanced students might know that there's a lot of ways to approach this chord, but this is just one way that I want to talk about that's going to make it kind of really simple right now. So if we approach it as D minor, we can do this really cool thing where we can have all the same notes in C major plus the C sharp, okay? So what I mean by that is D melodic minor. Now melodic minor differs from natural minor or Aeolian in that it has a natural 6 and a natural 7. So check this out. If I was going to play D Aeolian, which would be in the key of F major, it would sound like this. Right? Pretty natural minor sound. Now in melodic minor, check this out. Kind of gives that lift to it, right? But if we take the notes D, E, F, G, A, B, C sharp, D, all of those notes except the C sharp are in the C major scale. So for this little section of the progression, we don't have to worry much about notes having a whole new scale or anything except for replacing a C sharp for C. Okay? So again, our 2 scales that we're going to use are C major, D melodic minor. Right? So in example 6 that's in the PDF, this is just 8th note line that kind of works over the whole progression. And I'm going to play it once and then play it over the changes as well. So check this out. kind of works, but again, that is more of just a pure exercise, just getting used to the shape and the scale. And again, I would recommend just playing that exercise and using it all over. You know, that kind of thing, going up and down the neck, switching between those scales at the appropriate time. I just made this backing track in iReal Pro. It's pretty much the standard for like an app that you can play along to standards with and tunes and make your own charts and stuff, so I think that's pretty helpful for sure. Now the next example 7, is just doing the root position 7th chord arpeggios, which would mean we're playing the notes of the chord arpeggiated. So in C major 7, it would be C, E, G, B, right? So for the whole thing we'd have... Obviously there's all kinds of places to play it over the neck, but for this little example I just want to make sure we're acquainted with the root position arpeggios. And if you're not, I would spend some time looking up arpeggios for 7th chords. It's something I'll go over in another video, but for this one I'm not going to spend too much time on it. And I'll play that over the changes too, so you can hear that. Alright, so that's what the root position arpeggios sound like it over the changes. Now obviously switching from root to root isn't very good voice leading, right? So we want to make sure we're able to voice lead into the next arpeggio. What I mean by that is, for the last note we end on, we want to try and find the closest note of the next chord and play the arpeggio from that note. So our first one very slowly would be, if we end on a B and our next chord is D minor 7, what is the closest note in D minor 7 that we could play? It would be the 7, C. Okay, so then you just play a third inversion D minor 7 arpeggio. That'd be C, D, F, A. All the same notes, just in a different order. Okay? So the whole thing using that voice leading in this example would sound like this. So that's our voice-led arpeggio inversions over the changes. Now in example 9 shows us that we can start the whole thing from any of the chord tones on the first chord. That gives us 4 options, right? We can start on the root, 3rd, 5th, or 7th. So in example 9 we're going to start on the 3rd. It's going to sound like this.